I wanted to change up a little bit since we just started reading the Torah again and talking about the topic of science and Judaism, science and Torah. So that's going to be a little bit of what we're speaking tonight, not too long, hopefully. Shira will tell me when I have to stop. But before I do that, I can't hold back, but you can see the screen, right? Because you're going to need to see the screen in a minute when I do my presentation. So we know that we've been seeing some miracles in the past few weeks, ever since the last day of Sukkot, when the hostages finally, after 2 years, for no reason, were taken away and put in the worst of places you can imagine, in the darkest of places, some of them with 6 months in complete darkness. We're talking about no light at all, and they were placed in conditions that are beyond our comprehension, not for 1 day or 2 days, but for 2 entire years. And these are beautiful, young, handsome Jewish men, and it really touches home for us, especially when the whole world says we're crazy and we deserved it and we had it coming, so that's very, very painful. But that's the beauty of the Jewish people. When we are challenged, when we are squeezed, we bring out the best of us. And I just want to start off with talking about a little bit quoting ChatGPT, a little bit quoting what they said. 1 second. Oh, still. Okay, so a little bit of quoting what they said. Listen to this. So there's a story with one of the hostages that just came out. His name is Segev Yalkon. Does anyone remember the name? Heard the name? Segev. Really cool guy. So his father was close to a rabbi called the Yanuka. The Yanuka in Kabbalah is the name for a Jewish young prodigy. A young rabbi that knows a tremendous amount of Torah. And there's one that's alive today. He's 37 years old and he knows everything. There's nothing he doesn't know. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Yanuka. Yanuka means the young man. And it's a rabbi that's in Israel who's got a massive following. You can see videos of him on YouTube. He's younger than me. He's 37. And he's just a young man, and he's extremely influential. The Yanuka's father was very, very sick and had to be in Spain for special treatment. And that's where this young Jewish man grew up without any Jewish school or anything but his way, no friends, because they're a very religious family. His father passed away. So in Spain, this rabbi just spent hours on end studying from a very, very, very young age, studying Talmud and Torah, and that's all he does. And he's extremely, extremely wise and knowledgeable. So this rabbi was close to the family of Segev Yalkon's father and mother. A lot of these hostages, his parents, went to this great rabbi, the Yanuka, and he told the father of Segev Yalkon that you need to study the story every day, read just a little bit in the Torah portion about Joseph, who was in the pit. Anyone remember the story? The biblical story of Joseph? So he was thrown in the pit and he was sent to Egypt by his brothers and he was a prisoner. So that's a story of someone who was in prison and eventually got out. He got freed and became the best. He became the greatest. From the darkest of places, came to be the greatest. So the Yanuka said to the father, every day read this section of the Torah again and again and again, every day. And that's what he did for 2 years. He was reading this, and this rabbi said to him, I really believe that your son is going to come out, and he's going to be fine, and he's going to come out alive. And obviously the father, together with this rabbi, was praying, and they're not a religious family at all. And when Segev was finally freed, one of the first things he did was he calls on a video call, and there's a video of this. He calls the Yanuka. The Yanuka's somewhere near Tel Aviv. That's where he lives. And the father, Segev's father, together with Segev, the hostage that was now freed, they call the rabbi, and the father explains to Segev, who doesn't know who this rabbi is, he says, this rabbi has been with us the whole journey. And we've been so close to him. And then the father of Segev says, he's been directing us. And then the rabbi says, yes, and he starts talking. And the rabbi says, tell him that I told you to read the book of Joseph, the story of Joseph. Tell him. He says, oh yes, the rabbi, he told me to read the book of Joseph. And as he's saying that, Segev is like, yo, I can't believe you're telling me this. He said, for many days, for some reason, the TV that they had was showing me in Arabic the story of Joseph in the pit and coming out of the pit. And I didn't know the story originally. And he even says the name of the movie series that they had, which is in Arabic, is an Arabic video of the Jewish story, biblical story of Joseph. And he was watching this again and again and again. He's like, I don't believe you're telling me this. That's the story I kept watching. And he's like, Ani lo ma'amin, I don't believe it. And that's how and then he says to the rabbi, I can't wait to see you. And what was the story with Joseph? After 2 years, exactly to the day, he was freed. 2 years on the day. And do you know what? In the Hebrew dates, it was exactly 2 years. 1 day less. But it was exactly 2 years in the Hebrew dates. It wasn't October 7th. It was a little bit after, right? But in the Hebrew date, it was just the day before Simchat Torah. That's when he was freed. Talk about a miracle. And this is the story of the Jewish people. When we hear sad stories, we hear the sad part, but we don't see the miracles. A lot of times people don't tell us the miracles. But because today we have media and social media and things are getting around, we see the miracles too. And it's unbelievable. Every single one of these hostages came out. They didn't have much connection to Judaism at all, but they came out so much more connected. It's really amazing. Matan Engrest, who was another hostage, he said that every day he asked them, please give me tefillin, is the wraps, give me a siddur and a tanakh. Can you imagine? He's barely got food, a pita, not even. And sometimes they held him back from food. And instead of asking just for food, he's saying, give me something Jewish, I want to connect. I'm in a dark place. He had the chutzpah to ask them for something Jewish. He wants to connect. And you know what they did? They found it. Somehow, there's a lot of soldiers that were in Gaza, IDF soldiers, and sometimes they leave stuff. They're in war, and they leave stuff behind. And somehow, these idiots, they found a tefillin, and they found a siddur and a tanakh. And they said, okay, they saw it probably in their eyes as something, wow, this is pretty crazy. And they decided to give it to him. They didn't give him food, but they gave him this. And Matan Engra said, for almost the entire duration of my time here, I prayed 3 times a day, and I put tefillin on every single day. Isn't this crazy? How did they find this tefillin, and why did they agree? Do you know what it says in Proverbs? In Jewish teaching it says, B'tzot Hashem dakei ish, when a person wants to go in the way of God, when he really wants to do something good, even his enemies, this is what it says in Proverbs, even his enemies, yashlim ito, will agree and help him. If someone wants to connect, even the enemies of yours would help you. The people that are jealous of you, that don't like, if you want to do something good, they will also help you. If you go out there to do, let's say, you know what, I'm done with just making money. Today I want to give charity. Even the people that don't like you, you might not know who your enemy is, they will help you. Pretty wild. And that's what he did. And he said, this is quote, it was clear to me all along, because I found this miracle that I asked for tefillin, stood on Tanakh, and they gave it to me. It was clear to me all along that I would leave this captivity. I was in a series of miracles and felt a strong connection to my faith and my tradition. Okay, let's go to the next one. Agam Berger, who wasn't freed now, she was one of the 5 girls, but she was freed in February. This is what she said. Most holidays I kept. We missed Hanukkah because we didn't know what it was, when it was. We kept Passover, and we didn't eat chametz. We refused during Passover to eat bread. And that's a bit of food that she had. She probably didn't have matzah, but she still refused to eat bread during Passover. And she said we even kept Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. And this is the crazy story. She held back from eating, okay? That's crazy. But she said, for Tisha B'Av, we got mixed up with the dates. We weren't sure with the dates. Somehow, I didn't get to watch TV, but she said somehow the TV was on. They put it on. And do you know what was on it? An Israeli TV show. And it was mentioning the Hebrew date of that day when they turned it on. And what was the Hebrew date? The 2nd of Av. And the fast of Av is on the 9th. So she knew that from the 2nd to the 9th, she'll calculate a few more days. and she will be able to fast on Tisha B'Av. So she fasted on the 9th of Av as well. Daniel Gilboa said, whenever Shabbat came, somehow they weren't around, and he was able to sing Shalom Aleichem every week, loud. He said they weren't around, but when they're around, he has to be quiet. But every Friday night, he saw that they're not around, and he sang at the top of his lungs, Shalom Aleichem. Keith Siegel said, I never grew up with anything Jewish. I learned to say the Shema whilst I was there. I said it for the first time whilst I was anti-religious. But I said Shema for the first time when I was there. And he says something crazy. I never knew that before you eat, there's a Jewish tradition to make a blessing before you eat. He never knew. There's a lot of Jews. I have family in Israel that are living in Israel. They don't know even the basics of Judaism, even though they speak a Hebrew language. So he was there, and he said, I didn't even know that before we eat, according to Jewish tradition, we make a blessing on food until the screen was on. And for some reason there was a show, and it was a Jewish show, and the kid was making a blessing on the food he was eating. And I said, oh, that's probably what I need to do. And from then on, he made a bracha, shehakol niya bidvaro, on anything he drank or ate. Even though it was the wrong blessing on most of the food, it doesn't matter. He said that blessing anyway. And one more story. Itai Regev, at one point, he said, I really miss my Shabbat tradition. He was a little more traditional, and he says, at one point the terrorist said, instead of giving him water, gave him grape juice. And he did not understand how on earth, they don't eat grape juice. How did he get grape juice? And he kept it for Shabbat, and that's what he did on Shabbat. He made Kiddush on Shabbat. He said for him that was a sign, like God is with him. And he said he also got one Shabbat, a bagel in a bag. They threw at him a bagel, and in it was a little bit of salt in a small little bag. And that reminded him of the Shabbats, because on Shabbat we dip the challah in salt. It reminded him of dipping the challah in salt. And he said that was a sign. But what's fascinating, across all of these hostages, in the darkest of places, they found spiritual connection. To me, that is pretty amazing. You know why? Because we are a generation right now that have been through so much. It's crazy. And yet, even in that darkness, there's so much light, so much connection, so many people connecting, even around the world. We've seen people here connecting more than ever to their Jewish roots. Like, look, we have a bigger Taco Tuesday than we've, in the past 6 months. It's been crazy. Thank God. So it's an amazing lesson of connection, connectivity, positivity. Even in the darkest of places, we can win with a positive energy. And the way we do that is by connecting to our faith. That is a way to be positive. Not to be negative. Whatever people tell you, they're wrong. Judaism, do you know what Jew means? To say thank you. It's a way to be grateful, to have faith, to see the good in the dark, to have meaning, purpose, all of that stuff. That's what Judaism is. And that's what we're seeing in this story. Okay, so I want to move on to a little bit about science and Torah. I have made a presentation, and it's pretty amazing just because we started the Torah just now. And you guys can also join in. Whilst I talk, you can tell me some of your thoughts. Let me put this on. Cast it, 1 second. Hopefully it works.
Wait, did I turn it off?
Yeah. No, just one time and then it will go. Yeah. Oh, come on in a second. Slow. There you go. Aha. No, there you go. What? Is it good now? Okay. This is a quote from Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. He says that for many years throughout history, of blessed memory, Rabbi Sacks passed away a few years ago. He said of blessed memory that for many years we always saw as science and Judaism conflicting, but that's not true. As time goes on, and we're lucky to be alive in this century, the 21st century, to be able to see how Torah and science is merging together more and more. And it is a great harmony. So this is what I say. Science teaches us to see the world with a better lens. It's like a telescope. It gets you to see the world more clearly. But what does Judaism do? Torah teaches us to appreciate it. Okay, now you saw the flowers and how they work, or whatever it is, right? The ant, which is incredible. The ant in Hebrew is nemalak, comes from the word word. It speaks, it communicates in its own fascinating way. They all follow its track through scent. They have amazing communication. Dvorah, a bee, speaks, is in Hebrew is called Dvorah, bee, because they have an amazing form of communication. And they create something so amazing. So every animal, when you study it through science, study your body, wow. Mipsari echeze Elohai, it says, from my flesh I could see God. Not looking in the mirror and say, yeah. Right? But really, from my body, if I really study how my body works, when I eat, how it processes the food, that is a miracle. So science teaches us to see the world. What does Judaism do? It makes us appreciate it. It's a moment where you say a bracha. Right? Not only do you see how beautiful the apple is, but you make a bracha on it. You get to appreciate it. Okay, so this is the great harmony of Torah and science. It's not a contradiction. Okay, but I want to talk about the age of the universe in Judaism and how that fits in. And we should never be afraid of this conversation. It's very important. And it's important because that way we know and we can be proud. Okay, we could talk about gravity. Did you know that Judaism always knew about gravity? Did you know this? Pangea. When did we discover Pangea? Does anyone know? That's something that we always knew. Yeah. The moon's size versus the earth. The fact that science says that the moon originally was the same size as the sun, but it changed. That is a Jewish teaching in the Torah. Do you know this? Isn't that crazy? Okay. There's many things. How many stars exactly to the T? Judaism says it's 10 to the power of 29, and it's exactly a little more than the number that NASA gives of the stars. And it's written in the Talmud. A little more. Science is catching up slowly. It's getting there. Okay? But we have so many things. This is a statement from the famous Robert Jastrow, who was a Jewish man and a scientist and also translated a lot of the Talmud. He says like this: for the scientist who has lived by his faith in the power of reason, because everything needs to have reason, otherwise I don't believe it. So the story ends like a bad dream. He has climbed the mountain of ignorance. He's about to conquer the highest peak. And as he pulls himself over the final rock, who does he see at the top? Moses, a bunch of Jews. Now he says he's greeted by a band of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries. A bunch of believers that have said that the world always had a beginning. But that's not what the world always thought. So a lot of these ideas, maybe you're not in school anymore, so you don't think about science too much anymore, but think about it. There's a lot that we believe. Did you know that we always said that the world was round? Toleh eretz al blima. Not only did we always say that it's round, there's gravity, and it says in Kabbalah, this is written over 2,000 years ago, that no matter where the people are standing on earth, don't ask how can it be that they're both standing. Because there's a pulling force, which is gravity, that's pulling people, and they're standing on both sides of the earth. That's what he says. And it says that and there's some places in the world where it's day for most of the time. And then it's night for most of the time also, depending on the season. These are words quoted directly from the Zohar. How did he know that? This is pretty amazing. We're going to see how Torah and science really is a great harmony. And when we look at it in this lens, we can be appreciative of the world we live in much, much more. And not just say, oh, that's cute. but really appreciate the world. Say Baruch. Say Baruch Hashem. Thank God, right? That's our mission. That's the mission of Judaism versus science. Science sees it, and then what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? You were born. That means you. What do we do about that? You can breathe. Your heart has been pumping over 100,000 times today. What did we ever do about that? And that is the mission of Judaism. Put tefillin, be grateful. Spend a bit of time in the morning recognizing how many miracles went through your life. I do this when I think more. Okay, so let's go to the next. Let's go through some of the things. So Pangea, okay? Here's the idea of Pangea, the movement of continents. We know that there's 7. And you see how South America connects to Africa and North America to the top, Europe, right? You see how everything's interconnected? Well, since when did we discover that? Do you know when? You'll be blown away. This is the guy, Alfred Wegener. He died in 1930. You know how he died? He was a geologist. He was climbing Mount Everest. And he froze halfway up. So this is, sadly enough, Alfred Wegener was a German scientist who, in 1912, proposed the theory of continental drift. He suggested that all continents were joined together in a single giant landmass called Pangea, meaning all lands. That's what Pangea means. Over millions of years, which I don't agree with, Wegener said Pangea slowly broke apart and the continents drifted to the present position. So it was all one and split into 7 continents that we have today. Interesting. Although his idea was first rejected because they said, no, I don't like that. Scientists didn't like it. He couldn't explain how the continents moved. It later became the foundation for the modern theory of plate tectonics. Hence, this is why we live in California and we enjoy that shake once in a while. So this is Alfred Wegener. He's the guy that discovered Pangea. We only discovered, just that you should know, Australia about 200 to the Western civilization, 250 years ago, right? When did we discover America? I know that some people say it's not true, right? Christopher Columbus, how long ago was he? 1492. That's to the Western civilization. There were people here already, but to Western civilization, we discovered America only in 1492. So we didn't even know anything. But thousands of years ago, look what it says. Are you ready? This is on the third day. Third day, God says, "Let all the waters gather from below the heavens to one place." That means all the waters on earth. "V'tera'eh hayabasha," and you'll see dry land. Now it says hayabasha, which in Hebrew means the one dry land. It doesn't say hayabashot, which means plural. It says hayabasha. Look what it says in the Zohar. This is also a Kabbalistic book written over 2,000 years ago. B'tir'eh hayabasha, you'll see the land. He says, Eretz achat mamash, it was one land originally. Hotziu hamayim, that came out from the water, and from there, umimena nitavu sheva aratzot, and from there came 7 different lands. One land, and from that transformed to 7 lands. That's literally the words of what he says. Pretty crazy. And we always said, there are 7 lands today, but there was once one land. This is right at the beginning of the Torah. Okay, so there's a lot that we have. You know, once a guy came up to me and said, hey, you should believe in the Lord. I said, I do believe in the Lord. So he says to me, no, I'm talking about, that guy. So I said, okay, no problem. He starts quoting me Isaiah 53. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Isaiah 52, whatever, the whole shebang. He knows exactly, I've heard it before. So I said to him, can you please read to me off by heart the first verse of the Torah in Hebrew? So he couldn't do it. I said, okay, so get back to me when you can at least read the first verse in the Torah in its original language. This is not even an argument. This is a no-brainer. You can't argue with me about the Torah when you don't even know the original language. A translation? Who says that translation is right? And I guarantee you, it is wrong. Okay? So we're going to go a little bit and see, because I know that most people here haven't really, how many people here have really sat on the first 32 verses of the Torah? The first 6 days of the Torah, really sat on it. It's beautiful. We have some tzaddik, we have a tzaddik over here, right here, who's done it. But how many people can say, we have one hand, right? That really understand what happened at the beginning. What was created in the beginning? When was the planets created? What stage did we have the sun, the moon? Was it straight away? What was okay, we all know 6 days of creation. Oh, that doesn't work with science. But maybe it does. And I'm not just making this up. This is stuff that was written already for hundreds of years. So I want to talk about this a little bit. And we're going to see first what the Torah says. Then we'll say what science says and show you how it merges together so beautifully. It's going to blow your mind. We're just going to read the first verse today. Maybe we'll stop doing this later on and we'll do another time. We also have some amazing speakers coming here, by the way. We have a head chaplain of Cedar Sinai who I'm in touch with, who's going to be coming here. And we have a lot of lineup for really good speakers coming. But today I just want to talk about the very first verse in the Torah. This is 7 words. Bereishit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. 7 words. And those 7 words represent the 7 days of creation that we have. And they are very, very significant. Okay? So we always translate, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I want to tell you something very, very different. In the beginning, what's the beginning? So listen to what the rabbis say. This is the Sforno, and it's based on Kabbalah as well. In the beginning was time. In the very first moment of creation was time. V'hu rega rishon, that's the first moment, which doesn't separate. It doesn't have a beginning before it. That's a moment. Shelo yazman kodem lo. It never had a time before it. You have to trust me with the Hebrew if you don't speak it. But that's what it says. In the beginning means time. There's a lot more behind this word in the beginning. If you want, I could show you that in the beginning altogether adds up to 6,000. Do you know what year we're on right now in the Hebrew calendar? 5786. That doesn't fit with 13.8 billion years that the universe has been going on for, does it? We're going to fix that in a second. But Bereishit means 6,000. We're in 5786 right now. And that means that according to Judaism, after the 6,000 year, there's going to be a huge shift in the world. And we're seeing a shift in the world. We're now in 5786. It's not that long left. There will be a big change in the way that the world works. Interesting, huh? What would happen if 6,000 comes and it doesn't happen? We've never been wrong so far. Judaism has never been wrong so far. Okay, so this word Bereishit in the beginning also means Aleph B'Tishrei, the first of Tishrei. Who knows what that is?
First, Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah. Do you know what Rosh Hashanah is?
Head of the year.
The day that the world was created. That's hidden in the word Bereishit. Aleph B'Tishrei. There's a lot that's hidden in this word. Beit Rosh, Bait. Does anyone know what Bait means? House. A house. Rosh at the beginning. The very first speck of creation is where? Do you know where? In a house. Which house? In the temple. In the Holy of Holies. That's called Even Hashtiyah. There's a little stone that we believe is the first speck through which the world was created. Isn't that crazy? That's where the big creation happened. We'll talk about that too. But that's also hidden in the word Bereishit. Bayit Rosh. If you move these letters around, you'll get Bayit Rosh. Then you'll get Barashtei, created 2. Why? What was 2 that was created in creation? Does anyone know?
Adam and Eve.
Well, Adam and Eve. Good. Right? Male, female. Sorry if anyone gets offended. Right? But Barashtei, it really means 2 worlds. This world and the next world, the higher world. That when someone dies, your body dies, but the soul goes to a better place. And that's called Barashtei. There's 2 worlds actually. The world of soul and the world of body that we see today where we are here. Okay? Also, Barashtei, what was the last day of creation? What was on the last day of creation? Does anyone know? Shabbat. Do you know something? In Judaism we say, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. Whenever you start something, what do you think of at the beginning? The end result. Right? When you build a house, you don't just build a house with the frame and everything. You look at the plans which has the end result exactly how you want it to look like. If you don't do that, your house is going to be a mess. You've got to look at the end result. So when it says, bara, right? So you've got also Yerei Shabbat. Yerei Shabbat means fearing Shabbat. That was the purpose of creation. that we should all have rest and focus in what we created actually at the end of it. The purpose of creation was for the end, which is Shabbat. Okay? And then created 6. It also means Bereishit, which means created 6. What does it mean created 6? 6 days of creation. So it was 6 days of creation, but on the 7th was the day of rest. Sounds good? That's not just a word. Bereishit, in the beginning, huh? See, when you see it in Hebrew, it's a little different. So in the beginning, bara was created. There's 2 words to create. Let me tell you that there's 2 words to create. One word to create means bara, which is the way we say it here. And there's vayitzer, which is to be formed. Yes, when man was created, he was formed from the dust. And that word to be created was vayitzer. And then later on it says, but God gave him a soul. That was bara. To create something in this context, bara means to make out of nothing. Something came, yesh me'ayin, ex nihilo. That's literally what it means. So in the beginning was created time, ex nihilo, from nothing. It was God's will that brought from nothing into... This is scientific study today. Ex nihilo is a scientific study of how that beginning of that Big Bang really happened. Okay, we're just getting to the exciting part of it. Elohim is God. I'll talk about that in a second. The force of all forces, that's what it means. The et hashamayim, the skies, okay. The et haaretz, and the earth. Wait, the earth, that was created on the 3rd day. Not on the 1st day. On the 3rd day, earth was created. That I told you about Pangaea, that was on the 3rd day. So what was the earth? So the word Shamayim comes from, this is not me, this is Ramban, Nachmanides, not me. The word Shamayim comes from the word Shamem, which means emptiness, space. In the beginning was time that God created, space, ve'et haaretz. Haaretz comes from the word ratz, to run. And that's matter, movement, that moves. Okay, the earth that we're on is matter, right? Space and matter. So if you want to know what was created right at the beginning, time, space, and matter. Pretty cool, huh? Isn't that amazing? That was what was created in the beginning. Not what you think, because you'll see that only on the 3rd day was created all of the earth. And on the 4th day, we'll talk about days in a second, but on the 4th day only was actually created the stars, the sun, the moon. So anything that was created before that wasn't anything to do with that stuff. Okay? In fact, Nachmanides says that in the beginning, when time, space, and matter was created right at the beginning, that was a speck, that from that speck came the entire world that we have today. Okay? Nachmanides says, in that speck, that had everything. It had time, space, and matter. Now let's look at this from a spiritual, from a scientific perspective. Okay? By the way, we have also Bereishit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. These letters, et and et, always are there to include something that's not written here. Like it says in the Torah, honor your father and mother. It doesn't say just honor your father and mother. It says kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. Honor et avicha. It could say kabed avicha ve'imecha. It doesn't. It says kabed et. Et means thee. What's thee adding? Do you know what the rabbis say? Who do you have to honor besides for your parents? Yes, that's true, obviously. Huh? Yourself, okay, that's true, but not included in that word. When it says honor et avicha ve'et imecha, your mother and father, it says et lerabot achiv hagadol, your older sibling. So that's why when it says honor your father and mother, it says the word et, not the same way. Everyone's like, oh, I messed up on that one.
Can you say that again for my little sister?
Et avicha ve'et imecha means honor your father and son. When it says in the Torah that Cain and Abel were born, right? They were the first kids of Cain and Abel. Right, Adam and Eve. So question, if they were the first kids, they were 2 males, where were the females? How did they have babies? Huh?
They were twins.
Yes, they were twins. How do we know? Say the rabbis, you know how we know? Because it says, Batar batelet et Cain. She gave birth, Chava gave birth, and she gave birth to Cain, but it doesn't say she gave birth to Cain. Just simply, it says et Cain. The letters Aleph Taf represent that she had twins, and they were girls also. And then, don't ask me how that works, but that's what happened. And then, Hevel, it says twice the word et, because they had two girls also. So,
They also had a third son.
yes, that later on. But first, they had these two sons. We're not going to get too biblical, although we are getting biblical. Okay, so here, so what here in this context, what does et mean? Et comes to include everything that's created after it, was all in here. When it says in the beginning, time, God created the heavens and the earth, which is space and matter, it uses the word et because space and matter included in that all of the future that was going to be created after. That's why it says the word et as well, to include everything that was going to be created from the very first moment. Okay, let's go to science a second. Okay, so we know that the world, there's a big argument throughout history about static state theory or the Big Bang theory, okay? Static state theory was the belief until the 1930s, even till the 1960s. Which means for most scientists in the world, this started from the Greeks, till the 1960s, most scientists said the world always existed. Now they had a problem with new stars being formed. They said, no, just things are breaking and being remade, but the world always existed. It never had a beginning. And what did the Jews say? Could you understand that before 1960, it was uncomfortable to be a Jew and say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, which means in the beginning, time was created and space and matter. When we said that, people were like, you're crazy. In the beginning, there was a beginning. But today, everyone believes in the Big Bang theory. You know why? Because you can't disprove it. Starting with Hubble's law. Hubble's law was here in California, where all of these guys, by the way, won the Nobel Prize for discovering this. Okay? Because they're so brilliant that they discovered what the Torah always said. So Hubble said he had a special telescope here in California in the 1930s to a point where Albert Einstein said, I need to come and see it to prove my theory of relativity, which we'll talk about in a second. So you've got Hubble's law in California with this big telescope, whatever it's called, and he's looking out and he sees that the world is expanding. Do you know what that's like? It's like when you have little pebbles in your, not pebbles, like confetti in a balloon. Okay? And then you blow up the balloon, and as you blow it up, the confetti gets less and less, and further away from each other. But at the beginning, it's all one little ball. So he said, look, the world's expanding. What does that mean? If it keeps going like this, what does that mean? At a certain point, it used to be a little ball. And then it started expanding. This is in the 1930s. No one believed him, and Einstein came to see it and agreed. And then only till 1965, when we confirmed that everyone disagrees with the static state theory today. There's not one scientist that says that the world always existed. Everyone says that the world had a beginning. And it really happened in 1965, where these two scientists also received the Nobel Prize. Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, they had a special telescope, a new one, that was able to listen to radio sounds, waves. And they discovered that there was a microwave signal coming from all directions of space. And that's when they said, that's the heat from the Big Bang. So you've got expansion and you've got heat. That meant that the world had a beginning. And this is something we always said. Do you get the idea of scientists climbing the mountain and finding a Jew on top? Yeah, this is it. So this is what we always said all along. And they all received the Nobel Prize. But we always said the beginning. So let's look at the Big Bang a second. You have the Big Bang, that's a little speck which became a massive explosion of protons and neutrons and what they call photons or protons. What's it called? There's protons, there's electrons, and then there's light particles. What they called? No, protons is not light particles. Photons, it's photons, yeah. So you've got photons. I'm just checking your science. I know this is late after work and you're like, why is he giving me a science class? But look what happened. There was a great light. But do you know what happened after the great light? There was a tremendous amount of what they say, the dark ages, where light was able to scatter everywhere and it wasn't able to be seen, right? Because it was during the dark ages, what happened was there weren't atoms being formed yet, and all we had was light moving around. It's like having a bouncy ball in a room, and there's a bunch of people in the room, and the bouncy ball can't get anywhere because there's so many people in the room. So that's what was happening right at the beginning, and that's what was called the Dark Ages. It was very, very hot at this explosion of creation. Look, this is exactly what the Torah says. It's mind-blowing. And then, only after 400 million years, that's what they say, then eventually the stars started to being formed until we have 13.5 billion years where we are today. Okay? So in the Dark Ages, there was a great light, but it was completely dark. And look what the next verse in the Torah says. V'ha'aretz, matter, was with lots of confusion. This is the first matter. Aretz, we said, is not earth. It means matter. Hayta tol babo, was unorganized and empty. Everything was confusing. It was all empty. And choshech, darkness, al penei tehom, was along the deeps of this confusion. There was a tremendous darkness. Why does it need to tell me there was darkness? Because the darkness was holding back this great light from being released. And this darkness was actually a coolant. It was cooling down this great heat until eventually atoms were formed, and then we were able to see what we see today. But at the beginning, there was what we call the Dark Ages in the Big Bang. And that's exactly what it says. Listen to the statement of Professor Nathan Eviezer, who is a Jewish man, and he says like this. He's a scientist, physicist himself, and he says like this. Just 1 second after this great light of creation, all light was trapped within the primordial plasma. Although this light was powerful, it remained invisible, as the darkness was so intense and active that not even a camera could capture it. The plasma, so that means that if you would have gone there, you wouldn't have been able to see anything. The plasma held the light captive, hiding it completely within its depths. The darkness was so strong, it held the light from being seen, and it was complete darkness. And that's why you have the next verse, which is eventually that God said, let there be light. And God said, let there be light. In that darkness, God said, let there be light. And when was light actually created? Here. But did you know that really only later on in time, on the fourth day, did we really get light? We got the sun, only the two big luminaries, which is the moon and the sun, only happened on the fourth day, not on the first day, which is here what it's talking about. What does the Zohar say? What is this light that was created? If we didn't have the sun and the times and the moon and all the stars that we have today, which didn't happen yet until the fourth day. So what was this light that was created? He says like this. Where did this light come from? We have to understand that it was created in a higher world. Okay? And this light, this is what he says. It was a hidden light. From this light, all other lights came out from. This is what he says. And from that light eventually spread into this world. It started in the higher worlds, because in Judaism we have 4 different levels of world, and eventually spread to this world. But it was a light to it pashet hayneura ilah. This light was spreading, and he says, Va'avid al matata. It came to the lower worlds, but it was a light that cannot be seen. It was a light that came out, but then it wasn't able to see. This is exactly what we're talking about, that there was a light, but it was held back by the darkness. And this is what we've been talking about always throughout history, that there was a light that was held back because of darkness, that was at the beginning. From there, all of light eventually came. And many say that this very light at the beginning is actually matter, the light behind all of matter. Okay, so the electrons and neutrons behind everything has a light force in it. Otherwise, you can't see it. Right? Colors and everything we see is because of light. If not for light, we wouldn't see anything. So really, that very first light that was created is the light of matter. Okay, really only on the fourth day did light come to be. Quick question. What was the age of the universe then? Doesn't make sense. It says in Judaism, 6 days the world was created, and today we're in the year 5786, and it says in science that the world is 13.8 billion years old. Hey, what's going on over here? Okay, let me read you. It's not me saying this. Michtav Meliau, Rabbi Dessler in the 1940s, quoting Kabbalah. Okay? In the simple terms, Baruch Hashem. In the simple terms of the Torah, he says, according to our understanding, this is Michtav Meliau. In the second book, you can check this out yourself. You won't, because it's all in Hebrew. But if you want it, 150, I have the book over there. He says like this, it's, according to our understandings, they are real days with time and hours. But really, if you look deeper into the depths of this is a complete different understanding. Havchana acheret legamre. It is the 6 sfirot, the 6 energies of creation. These are the 6 ways that God reveals himself into how he created the world. Only for us, it is written in the form of 6 days, but it means much, much longer than 6 days. And why is it 6 days? To tell us that there's 6 different energies that were on these each day differently. This is, and he says, Zen niskav v'ne'elam k'divrei Rambam. This is all what the Ramban says. And then he says like this, and according to the Gaon of Vilna, who was also a great Kabbalist, he says that the creation says in it Bereishit, and in that is hidden the entire creation, because in those 6 days of the first 6 days has in it the entire 6,000 years. Okay, which means all the souls and energies are included into that moment of creation. And he says, all our souls are part of the original soul of Adam. This is a Kabbalistic idea that we all come from that original soul. But according to us, you think the 6 days are exactly like 6 days? Well, only on the 4th day did we really have the sun, the moon, and all the stars. How do we define time by today? We define time by the sun and the moon and the stars, right? Because we say there's 12 hours day, 12 hours night. That's to do with the stars, the sun and the moon, and how much median time that we have light on earth. But did you know that outside of that there's time? Time isn't dependent on light. It really is dependent on matter. And before matter, before the beginning, there was no time. But then the creation happened, and then it was a much, much longer time that was understood. And that's why the Talmud says, actually, the world was created before Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, which I said to you in the first book, was the day that Adam was created. So when we count 5786, it's from the 6th day, from when Adam was created. But before the 6th day, it could very well easily be much, much longer than 6 days. Interesting, right? Okay. We have a few seconds. Look at this. Now, that's when I get the warning. I know it's... Okay, so look at this. It's literally the last thing. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, and this is a statement said by... this is something else. Look, according to the Britannica, the beginning of recorded history is typically marked by the event of writing systems. If you argue with the 5786, I just want to let you know that when's the first time we actually have written history? Because people say we have, right, 13.8 billion years. When was the first time that history was actually written? This is not according to me, the Encyclopedia Britannica. It says that the earliest known example in cuneiform writing, when we actually have things written, developed by the Sumerians in ancient Mesopotamia, around 3,200 BCE. How long ago was that? How long ago is 3,200 BCE, before Common Era?
5,700 years ago.
Huh? 5,700 years ago. And how long did I say the world is? 5786. So when we actually first recorded history was 3,700 years before the Common Era, which is about 5,700 years ago. Very, very close to the date of 5786, which is what I mentioned before. Just one more thing. If you like all of that, I have something else to say. And this is based on a great Jewish professor. His name's Herman Banova of blessed memory. He was very close to the Rebbe of Chabad. And he was a great scientist, and he discovered physicist, and he discovered a lot of things, and he made a big difference to the scientific world. He says like this: when a kangaroo is born, do you know how small it is? Crazy. It's the size of a bean. Roughly 0.8 inches. And somehow it manages to crawl all the way up its mother, a tremendous journey, and feed off its mother at 0.8 of an inch. Right? 0.8 inches, like this. That's how small it is. And eventually it weighs less than 1 gram. Over the first year it grows rapidly, spending much of its time developing inside its mother's pouch, and it reaches 70 to 80 centimeters in length and weighs 8 to 10 kilograms. Starts like this, in 1 year, becomes 10 kilo in weight. How many times more weight is it grown in 1 year? Around 10,000, according to ChatGPT. It grows, it's probably wrong. But let's say it grows 10,000 times more in 1 year. That's crazy. So in 1 year, it gets to 8 to 10 kilograms. By the time it's fully grown, usually around 2 to 3 years old, a kangaroo can stand 15.2 meters tall. That's 5 to 6.5 feet. And weighs between 50 and 90 kilograms. Okay, the other stuff is just random. But that's interesting. It lives till about 22. Only the first 2 years is when most of its growth happens. The rest of it's just the same. Okay? But in 2 years, it grows, and especially in the first year, it goes 10,000 times the amount. So here, let's give you a baby let's give some random guy who's, let's say, a college kid, and you give him a baby kangaroo that was born, and he's like, what the heck is this? And I say, don't worry, you look after it. And he starts feeding it. In 1 year, it grows 10,000 times its original size. So what's he going to say? If this is how it grows like this, I ask him, how big is it going to be in 20 years? It grew 10,000 times in 1 year to 10 kilo. What size is it going to be in the second year? Does anyone know? 100,000 kilos. In the second year already, 100,000 kilos. In the third year, what's 100,000 times 10,000? Over 1 trillion kilos. And it's going to go up. Imagine by 22 years, you see how growth happens so much more at the beginning? When we are an embryo, when we were a little baby, we grew so much in 1 year, in 1 month. But then growth actually happens later on in time, much slower. And he says that that's exactly the same as what we believe in creation also. That according to Jewish tradition, the very beginning was a big bang, but there was a lot of growth, exponential growth happening at the beginning. Just like when a baby is formed, a lot of growth is happening in the first stage. And then after, things slow down. That's not me saying it. Science is saying it. So when we look at how things move now, maybe it's moving at a certain speed this way now, but 5,000 years ago, it moved much, much quicker. It's slowed down now, but originally it was moving much quicker, which means that time is relevant. Okay? And by the way, that is the theory of relativity. I'm going to finish. I promise you, this is never give up. So that is the theory of relativity. What did Einstein say? That time is dependent, is relative. Right? This is crazy. That means that if you have two people, one is 20 years old, both 20 years old, twins, right? And one decides to go on a rocket ship which is able to go almost the speed of time into space. And he's able to move almost, according to Einstein, and this is a fact today in science, he would be younger, he will go down in time. Time will go slower for him. So if, let's say, someone moves almost the speed of time, and he gets out of Earth, and he's moving almost the speed of time, 20 years later, the guy who's still on Earth will be 40, but the guy that moved up in space will be 25. Why? Because time is relative to the speed that you are moving. And that's what we see. That's a fact, by the way, in science today. That's called the theory of relativity. It's not a theory anymore. It's a fact. That was Einstein's discovery. He got a Nobel Prize for it. Anyway, Trump should also get one for saving the hostages. Anyway, yes. Okay, if you don't like it, fine. But my message, I'm not here to be political, I just was. Never give up. Why am I telling you never give up? Because the Torah is not a story just of history and creation. This is my final point. Okay? At the beginning, everything was confusing. Do you know what that sounds like? Your life and my life. A lot of times for us, it seems like I'm in darkness. I'm locked. I'm in a place where there's no success. I'm a hostage. It's dark for me. It looks like tohu vavohu, emptiness and unorganized and deserted, and it's confusing. But what eventually happens? Eventually things fall into place. Over the 6 days, God teaches us that eventually the light will come out. By He-Or, there will be light. That is the teaching of Judaism. Yes, there's a great energy, and you're like, why is it so dark here? All this energy is getting wasted. But eventually that light will come out. This is the story of me and you, and that's one of the reasons why the Torah tells us the story of creation. So we should always know that whenever we are in a state of darkness, there's a light inside of us that needs to come out, and it will come out. Okay, thank you for listening. Yes, can I do questions or no?
Oh.
Announcement.
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe 2 questions.
Okay, 2 questions, 3 questions?
Anyone has any questions?
Wow, yes.
Question.
So you were talking about at the beginning in Hezek the one, how did they decide how to translate the words into interpret it? Because I feel like every time someone tells me something, it's like a different interpretation.
Right.
So how do you decide which translator?
Right, so it's not, that's why we don't rely on our own translation. We have to look at what the Talmud says, what the Torah says, and what we understand based on that. Like, let's say when it says Bereishit, so that word has in it Rosh, it has in it many words. I can't know that unless I know the entire Torah and use whatever was taught before that to tell me what that word really means. That's why Hebrew is so divine. It's so important to know the original language.